What's up, guys? I'm Nobody Special, and today I saw this ridiculous headline on CNBC, and I just couldn't keep my mouth shut. Now, look, I got to put a little warning out there. If you're one of those Green New Deal, wind and solar, and nothing else types, you should probably click off right now because this video is not going to sit well with you if you are. And it's a subtle phrase in this headline that really just grinds my gears. A coming copper shortage could derail the energy transition, report finds. And it's that phrase, the energy transition, that just grinds my gears, and I cannot stand to hear this, folks. Demand for copper is booming, but supply can't keep up, jeopardizing net zero emissions targets. And I'm going to show you two charts that are going to show you that these net zero emission targets are not just a pipe dream, they're not just a fantasy, they are outright delusions. And right now, the world is speeding towards widespread civil unrest that is going to cause starvation and wars to break out all over the planet while this fantasy is dominating our energy policy. And I'm going to show you in just two simple charts just how ridiculous this fantasy is. Now, first off, we have this chart from Our World in Data. This is electricity production by source. Emphasis, electricity production. Okay, now you can see this goes all the way back to 1985. Now, dominating the chart are the same energy sources that have dominated energy for really 100 years. Down here, we've got coal. The biggest chart by far worldwide is coal. Then we've got natural gas. Then we've got oil. Then we've got nuclear power. Then we've got hydroelectric power. Finally, at the top of the chart, here is wind. After all of that money we've invested in wind, this is all the power that we've gotten out of it since 2000. And I also want to add that this is wreaking havoc with our electricity grid. And I did a video just a couple of days ago about how all of this wind generation in Texas is outright useless right now, operating at something like 5% during a heat wave. This wind is not there when people need it. It's doing nothing right now in Europe during their heat wave. It's doing nothing in Texas during their heat wave. And moving on from that, you have got solar. After all that talk, my God, after decades and decades of the most ridiculous speeches by politicians and environmentalists and anti-nuclear activists and all this garbage I've had to listen to for the last 20 years, this measly little sliver is all the solar power we get from our electricity generation. And rounding out the list is this other renewables category, which is just a couple of percent. But folks, even this chart, even this pitiful performance by wind and solar doesn't even begin to tell the story of just what a dismal failure the Green New Deal and green energy policy really is, because this is only electricity production. See, electricity is only about 1/3 of the energy we actually use. The other 2/3, transportation, home heating, generation of fertilizers, they're not covered in this chart. So if we actually go to the actual whole energy mix, the chart that needs to be met in order for this ridiculous net zero policy to come into effect, well, for that, we have to go over to this chart. And unfortunately, things get even worse for wind and solar on this chart. Again, this is from Our World in Data. This is global primary energy consumption by source. This is not just electricity. This is home heating, and this is transportation, i.e. the actual energy that we need. And when you look at this chart, it's even worse. Down here at the bottom, this is traditional biomass, i.e. burning firewood and animal dung for heat. A lot of people in the world are still doing that. Then we've got the coal chart. Then we've got oil. Then natural gas. You can see we're up here almost 85 to 90% of global energy is still coming from firewood, oil, coal, and gas. After decades of all of these stupid speeches, look at how much of our energy is still coming from this stuff. They have achieved nothing. The energy transition has achieved absolutely zero in displacing any fossil fuel consumption whatsoever. Here's the nuclear. Here's the hydropower. Finally, here's wind. Can you even see it? If you squint and you zoom way in, maybe you can see wind. After all the stupid political posturing and the silly protests and Greenpeace climbing the Brooklyn Bridge to hang banners that say build more windmills, this is all of the wind generation we're getting. Solar is even worse. Even when I highlight solar, it doesn't even show up, folks. It's not even a rounding error on this chart. Can you see it? I can't see it. I tried to zoom in. You can't see it when you zoom in. It doesn't even show up on the chart. And again, rounding out is modern biofuels and other renewables, also Not even 1%. So, folks, when you look at this chart of our actual global energy consumption, after years and years of ESG and wind and solar and the protests and the pipelines not getting built and everything, look at this ridiculous, tiny little sliver of our energy that comes from wind and solar. So when CNBC says a copper shortage could derail our energy transition, how do you reconcile that with this chart? Is it a copper shortage that threatens this tiny little itty bitty slice of this mountain of energy that we need? Oh no, our copper shortage is going to derail that little tiny sliver of our energy transition? No. Folks, the next time somebody talks about wind and solar saving the day and coming to the rescue, remind them of this chart. I'm going to put a link down in the description below. People need to see this. This is nothing but a means of controlling people. Wind and solar cannot possibly ever displace even a fraction of the fossil fuels we currently use, let alone replace all of them. Are you kidding me? What would it take? How much money printing? How much metal and copper is it going to take to turn these little tiny slivers of power up here at the top of the chart into this mountain of coal, oil, and gas? Now, that's not to say there isn't a transition going on right now. There actually is a transition going on. We're not transitioning from fossil fuels to renewables. No, we're transitioning from poor people having energy to poor people not having energy. That's the transition that's going on right now. And this is just a preview of what that's starting to look like, folks. Get a good look at it. This is Klaus Schwab's world. This is the energy transition that's going on right now. Not fossil fuels to windmills, not fossil fuels to solar panels. These people having food and energy to these people not having food and energy. That's the world Klaus Schwab is promising you. So remember, the next time you see a headline in the mainstream media talking about the energy transition, we're not talking about a pipe dream. Pipe dreams at least have a fraction of a 1% chance of coming true. The energy transition is an outright delusion. It's a fantasy. It's not real. It's the man Joe Biden tries to shake hands with after a speech. It isn't there. It doesn't exist. And scenes like this are going to keep popping up all over the world this year and next year because people can't afford to eat, because people don't have energy, because that's the energy transition that's going on. We're not going from fossil fuels to renewables. We're going from the poors have energy to the poors don't. It's not too late. We don't have to go down this path. We don't have to starve ourselves or freeze or fight each other over what few resources remain. We don't have to live the way the World Economic Forum is insisting we all live. Till next time, live small and dream big.